This video is a response to Dan McClellan. He made a video recently that was on my Facebook feed. That's how I found it. Full disclosure, I printed out his transcript. Or I didn't print it out, but digitally I have his transcript. And I changed a few words. And we're going to see what this sounds like as a critique of his video.
Hey everybody, I'm Dan McClellan. I'm a scholar of the Bible and religion, and I wanted to follow up on my previous video number McClellan 2393, where I talked about why it's problematic to appeal to the Bible to rationalize putting a serial sexual predator in the White House.
I'm a scholar of woke progressives, and I wanted to follow up on my previous video where I talked about why it's problematic to appeal to critical theory for running a woke DEI hire communist for a position in the White House.
I want to pause real quick and say, if when I said put a serial sexual predator in the White House,
if when I said run a woke DEI hire communist for a position in the White House,
you had alarm bells going off in your head and you immediately either felt that intuitive pinch or started coming up with objections or arguments against what you heard me say, then this video is for you, because I'm going to discuss an important insight from the cognitive sciences that is a big part of my research in the cognitive science of religion and was a big focus of the methodological framework that I developed within
my book, Feel Sorryforism, Who Needs It?
My book, Adonai's Divine Images. We don't perceive the world around us as it is. We perceive it as our minds allow us to. Our minds are actively rifling through every piece of sensory and cognitive mail that we have ever and will ever receive. And one of the things this means is that not only are our senses governed by our evolutionarily installed concern to protect our physical selves, but also by our evolutionarily installed concern for protecting our standing within the social identities that are important to us, as well as the standing of our social identities, because we are fundamentally social creatures. And so whether you are aware of it or not, or believe it or not, your identity politics come before any actual conscious cognition that you engage in. And so if you immediately had a red flag go up and alarm bells go off,
when I referred to Kamala Harris as a woke DEI hire communist, that's because your subconscious intuitive cognition perceives some kind of threat to either a social identity that is important to you or you're standing within a social identity that is important to you.
That is an obstacle to critical thinking because we will frequently leverage our reflective cognition in defense of our intuitive cognition. It's called rationalization. We want to perceive that we are good. We want to perceive that our intuitions are good. So we might even say,
believe all women, or I am being oppressed.
God is talking to us, or that's the Spirit telling us something. No, it's just our intuitive cognition telling us what it thinks we need and what it thinks we want. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the people who are having a hard time with putting a serial sexual predator in the White House, because I want you to understand a little better where they're coming from so you can think a little more critically about them.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the people who had a hard time with running a woke DEI hire communist for the White House, because I want you to understand a little better where they're coming from so you can think a little more critically about them.
Now, I've seen a number of stories recently about folks who have had relationships severed, particularly women. They've either done the severing themselves or they've had their relationships with family members and close friends severed by their family members and close friends because
they've raised objections to running a woke DEI hire communist in the White House.
They've raised objections to putting a serial sexual predator in the White House, and those friends and family don't care. They say, you're ruining relationships because of politics. And that's just a rationalization. I want you to do a bit of a thought experiment with me. Imagine you're a child growing up in a house where there is emotional abuse, physical abuse, or maybe even sexual abuse. And it is either done by the authority figures in the house, or it is excused and ignored or facilitated by the authority figures in the house.
Imagine you're a child growing up in a stable home where there is no emotional abuse, no physical abuse, no sexual abuse, and this child has a strong identity because they have great parents.
People who grow up in situations like that often don't feel safe or comfortable in their own homes because they know at any moment somebody could come in and can abuse them, and they have nowhere they can turn. The people they're supposed to be able to turn to are telling them it doesn't matter.
This child is taught the value of hard work. They study and study, get straight A's, they ace the SATs, then apply for scholarships to prestigious universities. And then we elect a woke DEI hired communist to the White House who says someone who didn't achieve what this child achieved but has darker skin shades should get the scholarship in the name of equity.
And hopefully they are able to get out of those situations and they grow up and there's probably years and years of therapy, but maybe they feel safe living on their own. At least they don't live within a household where they know that at any moment someone could come in and rob them of their autonomy and of their safety. And the authority figures, the people who are supposed to protect them, would tell them, it doesn't matter. It's your fault. We can't ruin this individual's promising future.
Or imagine this young child who is a girl, loves sports, and works hard, trains every day, and applies for an athletic scholarship. And then we elect a woke DEI hire communist to the White House who says a male who has obvious advantages over the girl should get the scholarship in the name of inclusion.
And then we elected a serial sexual predator to the White House. And a lot of people don't realize how re-traumatizing this was because it took that limited scope where inside their house they felt unsafe, and then it expanded it to the whole nation.
Imagine this young girl goes into a change room at her local fitness club, and while changing, a male who identifies as a woman exposes his penis to her and says, "Don't worry, I'm a woman," which this woke DEI hire candidate supports.
So that now they don't know who around them might excuse serial sexual predation. They don't know who around them might say, oh, well, your feelings don't matter. Oh, well, you deserve it. Oh, well, your body, my choice.
Or worse yet, imagine this young girl's hanging out with her friends one night and then on her way home gets raped and murdered by an illegal immigrant who a woke DEI hire communist lets into the country.
They don't know if something is going to happen in the post office. They don't know if something is going to happen when they're picking up their kids from school. They don't know if something is going to happen while they're sitting in a pew at church.
And so when you don't take seriously the fact that running a woke DEI hire communist to the presidency turns the nation to a place where a lot of people no longer feel safe and no longer feel like their efforts matter, that's a problem.
And so when you don't take seriously the fact that electing a serial sexual predator to the presidency turns the nation into a place where a lot of people no longer feel safe and no longer feel like they can trust the people around them, that's a problem. And when you just dismiss them as putting politics ahead of relationships, that is just finding a rationalization for why you should not have to care about the fact that you have made the nation an unsafe place for so many people. And if you immediately set to coming up with excuses, again, that's that intuitive cognition trying to make you feel
like you're a good person for running a woke DEI hire communist for the White House.
And if you did help put a serial sexual predator into the White House, it doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad person. It means you made a bad choice. But you can still be better. You can still do better. We all need to do better.
And if you did vote for a woke DEI hire communist for the White House, it doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad person. It means you made a bad choice, but you can still be better. You can still do better. We all need to do better.